The special meeting for the Upper Darby School Board will come to order. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. During this unprecedented time, while schools are closed and social distancing requirements are in place, the Upper Darby School District needs to continue certain aspects of its business, which includes decisions concerning pandemic planning. For this reason, the Upper Darby School District will continue regularly scheduled school board meetings while Governor Wolf's emergency declaration is in place. It is the plan of the school board to hold these meetings with the minimum required departures from normal operating procedures. The Upper Darby School District School Board COVID-19 Special Operating Procedures document outlines expected departures from those normal operating procedures and the policy justification for such departures. At the start of each board meeting held during the emergency declaration, the board will review the departures from normal operating procedures as well as their justifications. While schools are closed and social distancing requirements are in place, the Upper Darby School District School Board finds it necessary to hold virtual school board and school board committee meetings to complete required business. These virtual meetings will allow for public viewing and participation. Following practices already in place for regular meetings, all virtual school board meetings, in addition to allowing near real-time public viewing and participation, will be recorded and the recordings made available after the meeting. In order to hold virtual school board meetings, adjustments need to be made following existing school board policy. These adjustments have been outlined in the Upper Darby School District School Board COVID-19 Special Operating Procedures. Dr. McGarry, you have some things you want to add?
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Board President Brown. Good evening to those who are able to join us this evening. On July 14th, the school district passed a plan for reopening our schools. Tonight is a special meeting to revisit those plans to reopen our schools, and you will find reports under the curriculum instruction aspect of our normal board meetings. As a result of recent back and forth with the public and with the Board of School Directors over some confusion regarding the committee questions at upperdarbysd.org, where we take question and answers during committee meetings, we wanted to provide clarity for our board meetings. Tonight is considered a special voting meeting, so we established moving forward, and for this evening, a different email address called board meeting comments at upperdarbysd.org. So any individual who's watching this evening who would like to send us any comments as we review the information on reopening our schools, please feel free to send us an email at boardmeetingcomments@upperdarbysd.org. We will certainly read over your comments prior to the board taking action on any of the reports that are presented this evening. You could also send us a voicemail recording at 610-789-7200, extension 2000. Again, 610-789-7200, extension 2000. Whether you're sending us an email at boardmeetingcomments@upperdarbysd.org or phoning in a message at 610-789-7200, extension 2000, please be sure to leave your name, address, and the specific report or item you are commenting on for this evening. Again, the board will make certain to read over those comments before they take final action. I also want to make sure that the public's aware that the board has instructed me and the administrators in the district to update our FAQ. So any questions that come in this evening, we will certainly provide an updated FAQ following the board's decision this evening. Thank you, Board President Brown.
Thank you, Dr. McGarry. Roll call, Board Secretary, Mr. Rogers, please.
As I state your name, please say you're present and can hear the proceeding. Dr. Haig,
I am present and I can hear the proceeding.
Mr. Desnoyers,
I am present and I can hear the proceedings.
Mr. Warsavage,
I am present and can hear the proceeding.
Mr. Neal,
I am present and I can hear the proceedings, but I do ask if you could speak up just a little bit. Thank you.
Mrs. Dawes,
I am present and I can hear the proceedings.
Mr. Field,
I am present and I can hear the proceedings.
Mrs. Curry,
I am present and I can hear the proceedings.
Mrs. Mitchell,
I am present.
Mr. Brown,
Present. Policy 003 allows the board to suspend policies or parts of policies when appropriate. Therefore, due to the current ongoing crisis and the governor's closure order, I make the following motions to suspend language in 2 of the board's policies until the next regularly scheduled meeting. Policy 006.1, which regulates attendance at meetings via electronic communications. I move to suspend the language requiring board members to be present. Specifically, the suspended language would be, a majority of board members shall be physically present at a board meeting when a board member attends through electronic communications. And Policy 006, which governs other requirements of board meetings, I move the suspension of language requiring that those members of the public wishing to participate be present. Specifically, the language in this section titled Public Participation would remove the words that reads, present at a board meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say I oppose and state your name for the record. Anyone abstaining, please say I abstain and state your name for the record. Motion carries. Dr. McGarry, please provide an overview of the district's phased school reopening plan, please.
Thank you, Board President Brown. On July 14th, the Upper Darby Board of School Directors, Upper Darby School District Board of Directors, supported my recommendation to reopen schools for the 2020-2021 school year. What we felt at that time was the safest opportunity to bring students back for instruction. If the board recalls, many school districts at that time were considering a full return to instruction, trying to work toward 3 feet of social distancing and trying to bring as many students in place at one time. Upper Darby School District was one of the few school districts that came out early on July 14th and felt that it's safest and smartest for us to return to school because we think it's extremely important. I think it's extremely important. I know that the Board of School Directors feels the same way, to try to get students back in school. And we felt we would work toward, as I made my comments on July 14th, to the maximum extent possible. At that time, the consideration was 6 feet of social distancing, a flexible cohort model with 2 cohorts at the elementary school, 4 cohorts at the middle school, and 3 cohorts at the high school. Some of the caveats to that plan, in particular at the middle school level, required us to shift boundaries, moving upwards of 400 students from Beverly Hills Middle School to Drexel Hill Middle School. Also allowing some kindergarten students to attend school in their neighborhood school instead of the kindergarten center. Both of those decisions are obviously made available to the public. We have produced maps, cohort maps, and new boundaries in accordance with Policy 206, assignment within district. So my point is we went to the maximum extent possible at the time with the information that we had to try to get to what we would call as normal a school opening as possible. All of this is obviously far from normal, and I can't thank the Board of School Directors, teachers, UDSD, TWU, all the members of this organization for the hours of time they've put into working with me and our team to try to reopen our schools. So I do want to make it clear to the public that this has been a total team effort, and there's been hours and hours of time, and the guidance is ever changing, and oftentimes it's left up to the superintendents in most school districts and school boards to make these very challenging and difficult decisions. We are anything but medical experts. And if I would just comment on one thing, it would be a lot easier if there were much clearer definitive guidelines in making these decisions. On July 14th, I recommended a plan for a return in a flexible cohort model, elementary, middle school, and high school. Since that time, however, as recent as July 31st, we've been meeting weekly with superintendents. Just today, prior to this meeting, I had a whole different attitude about what my recommendation would be for this evening. But fortunately today, I had an opportunity to again meet with two medical professionals from the University of Pennsylvania who provided great very clear guidance for schools, where in the past, much of the guidance from the Chester County Department of Health and others, and I appreciate their help as well, they've been really working on providing guidance on how to reopen schools safely. So I do want to be clear that the decision, whatever decision we make here in Upper Darby, it's not because medical experts are saying you have to do one or the other. I know there's questions that keep coming in. School district superintendents and school boards will be making this decision on their own. This will not provide us the same relief that the decision to shut schools down on March 13th of last year provided. The number of hours of instruction, the number of days, state mandates, all of those are still in play regardless of the model the board implements this evening. We knew that on July 14th, and we know that this evening. But as a result, the data trends and the most recent information, as recently as July 31st in Delaware County, and again, I'm learning this and studying this information as I'm sure everybody else is, but the 7-day positivity rate, and what this means is the number of people testing positive compared to the total number of people tested is at 6.5%. And I know we all have been learning more about the red, yellow, and green phases of reopening schools. We joke around here administratively that green looks a lot more red than it does green originally. Governor Wolf's, I guess, kind of benchmark, as I understand it, was 5%. 5% and lower could get you to the green phase. The problem right now, especially in Delaware County and in particular Upper Darby, is there's an upward trend. As people are more relaxed, they're not following social distancing guidelines, and they're not wearing their masks if they are below 6 feet, we are seeing an upward trend. In particular, the data is showing an upward trend for teenagers up until the age of 29. And as a result of that, the data in Delaware County seems to be not trending in the direction we'd like it to. What does that tell us? That tells us that we're in an imperfect, ever-changing situation. And again, I want to emphasize, since the moment we started to try to put a plan together to reopen our schools, I've continued to say that this is imperfect, it's ever-changing, and we're making our best guess at how to reopen our schools. I want to say that we have spent a lot of time meeting with UDEA leadership, and I want to thank the Upper Darby Teachers Association for absolutely supporting their teachers and the safety of their staff, but also for giving me time as a superintendent in our cabinet at the time to listen to us and to talk to us about what we're up against here. In those conversations, I've made it clear to UDEA. I've been fortunate enough to meet with UDSD and TWU, and I want to just share with the public what we're up against here. We're up against students getting what they deserve. We're up against safety of our students and our staff. We're up against providing a resource to help the economy, which is what we really know that we do more than anything, along with education. But we also provide jobs in this community. And the decisions that we have to make are very, very serious. So we've reviewed all of these decisions and these discussions, and I am not going to tonight put the responsibility on anybody other than myself as the superintendent of the schools for the recommendation. What's happening as a result of these trends, as a result of students and staff experiencing this uncertainty and this ever-changing data and this virus that we really can't wrap our hands around right now, we will then run into a situation where staffing our schools and chasing this virus will become untenable at times. We've recently experienced some cases here in the school district where it takes upwards of 2 hours to get clear, definitive action on who needs to quarantine and who doesn't, and how do we handle that. And while I appreciate that support, and don't get me wrong, I think it's important that we're continuing to get that support, that's a lot of time to make decisions. If we have to quarantine staff for 14 days and groups of students for 14 days, ultimately we're going to be in a situation where we'd have to shut down. Right now, it would be unwise for me to say to this board and to this public that if the data is showing an upward trend, to try to reopen for in-person instruction as the data is increasing and not decreasing. So on July 14th, based on the information that we had, we did not feel comfortable opening schools for a full return. I felt comfortable asking the board to support a plan to reopen in a social distancing model of 6 feet and masks being worn in common areas, but not at 6 feet. In meeting with our teachers union as recently as yesterday, and again, this is prior to 11 o'clock today, and I'll explain what I mean, that the conversation with the teachers union, again, I appreciate their support and the effort that they're giving, that they wanted reassurance from me that we want you to make sure that masks are being worn. And I said yesterday, listen, you know, I'll change our plan to require masks at even 6 feet. So there's a revision to the July 14th plan that if we were to reopen schools in a cohort model of 6 feet of social distancing, we are now changing the plan to require masks to be worn at 6 feet. Essentially, masks will be required to be worn at all times. And that is clearly out of support for our UDEA and our UDSD and our TWU workers who'd be willing to come in and support our model, which is courageous. I don't think teachers go into this profession thinking that they're worried about risking their lives, and I respect that. I respect the courage that they have to work with us and put the hours in to try to help us work on these plans. So staffing our schools is by no means a way of saying and it's anybody to blame other than the virus. And at our best, what we're finding out is we might be able to get upwards of 70% or 80% of our staff to be able to return in a flexible cohort model, and we need a lot of people to pull that off. So this evening we have provided two different conversations. One would be to ask the board to approve the revisions to the reopening plan that was provided on July 14th, which would be two changes, one requiring the masks of everybody at 6 feet, even students at all times, and students who would not follow that, we would ask them and their families to move to a virtual platform, online learning. And also, obviously, you know, in that model, we would also recommend a change from the temperature checks. On July 14th, we felt that we could pull off temperature checks on buses and when students came in, and right now we're having a hard time filling additional need for hourly nurses. We're not going to give up on that, but if we can't implement it as of August 31st, we have to make sure we're telling the board and the public, and we would have to change that plan. So wearing masks and temperature checks are changes to the July 14th plan. If the board approves that, those two changes are I think, significant changes to the plan. I'm not recommending that plan tonight. And it's troublesome for me to continue to go through all of this, but I know that students need to be in school. I know that's best for our kids. I do not think virtual learning for an extended period of time is best for all kids. And this is not going to be a popular discussion, but I don't think it's also wise to open schools right now in an in-person setting when the data that I'm trying to learn about and figure out does not seem to be trending in the downward location that we'd like it to. We're going to keep an eye on that, and we'll revisit that depending on what the board would like us to do. My recommendation instead would be a plan to open schools virtually. The administration has worked hard, has provided the public and the board with examples of what a virtual plan would look like. We provide brain breaks, we provide educational opportunities. We're not going to ask students to log on for 80-minute increments at a time. We don't think that that's best. We're providing time for our staff to catch up and keep up with the work. But for consistency's sake, I believe that a plan to reopen schools in a virtual model would allow us to get back to closer and buy more time to make sure we have everything that we need to have in place for the safest return as possible. I also think that it would be a little unrealistic for us to think that we're automatically going to return to normal right now. I think we have to be prepared for, as our plans state, that this is the new normal, this uncertainty, that we have to be considerate of going into school and flexing out of school, and this is the new normal that we have to prepare ourselves for. And in making this decision tonight, I also have to be aware of, you know, the needs of our community, which I'm not taking lightly. I understand the impact this has on families. I also understand the impact this has on our teachers, because as one school district community decides to go virtual, we have teachers who live in those communities and they have to worry about their own children. So in order to support our students and our staff to be consistent, right now, it allows our teachers to provide the best level of education while worrying about their own safety and their own families in a virtual model. It provides more consistency right now, I think, and again, more opportunity for us to even clean up more of what we need to do to get us back in an in-person flexible model. So I would like briefly, before I continue, to just again say that on July 14th, we left off with a plan for a return for in-person instruction. And that it's the most realistic at this time for a return, I think, in a virtual model based on the information that I said. We're going to revisit this potentially at the end of September and October. And we may be in a situation at the end of September and October, once we get out of this summer lull, that I think has lulled everybody into this idea of wanting to escape March until the end of the year, that maybe we can get everybody back on the path of the masks and the social distancing so that we can get our kids back into school. And that potentially at the end of September or October, maybe we can start to bring elementary school students back in first, and then a consideration of, after winter break, bringing middle school and high school students back into our flexible cohort model. The reason I say that is because the middle school model, if we go virtually, requires us to shift middle school students around. If we start the year in a virtual model, Beverly Hills students will stay at Beverly Hills, and the Drexel Hill students will remain at Drexel Hill. If we flex back to in-person instruction in that cohort model, we would have to move Beverly Hills students over, and that will take a lot of work and time, and doing that in October or September might not be best. Although we'll talk about that in September and October if the data allows us to do that with the board. That would be a board decision. My recommendation today would be to wait until after winter break for the secondary students potentially to return and focus on getting elementary school students back in as soon as possible. But I want to take a moment and just ask Mr. Salerno if he has an opportunity just to quickly review the time of what an elementary virtual day would look like if he's able to share that with us this evening.
Yes, thank you, Dr. McGarry. As Mr. Rogers is pulling that presentation up, I just want to, again, reiterate what you said about our partnership with UDEA and how hard the team has been working, including the elementary principals, the coaches, the supervisors, Ms. Kelly. It's really been a team effort in trying to pull off as many different options as possible to make an informed decision and the best decision for our students. At this time, we are looking at a virtual-only option, and in doing so, we did pull together a sample draft schedule of what that could look like if we went 100% virtual at the elementary level. Keep in mind that this schedule that you're about to see on the screen here, the basic premise behind this schedule is to maintain, to Dr. McGarry's point, the cohort model. So just recently, through our maps that Mr. Lambert put together and pushed out publicly, and also in email communications from the principals and directly from me, we identified students at the elementary level in either an AM or a PM cohort. Please note that we are still planning on having students in the cohort model, maintaining an AM and PM cohort. So students will still be in a cohort 1 and a cohort 2 model, even in the virtual setting. Our main reason for doing so is really twofold. We have two reasons for doing this. Reason number one really centers around just best practices for instruction, especially at the elementary level when we're talking about some of our youngest students. We feel that keeping even in a virtual model class sizes on the average of between 12, 14 students in each section with a teacher virtually really gives our teachers a better chance at being more engaging and actively monitoring the virtual classroom, and our students, even more importantly, to just engage in that content, to have the discourse virtually with other students, and really get the most out of that virtual learning experience. As Dr. McGarry has mentioned a number of times, it is our 100% focus to make sure that we are providing as much synchronous, real-time virtual instruction as possible. We heard our families loud and clear after our spring, even though our teachers all gave their very best effort, and the principals and the entire team We understand that we need to do a better job of providing as much live synchronous instruction as possible to our students. And that is our goal, and also, again, in doing so, providing as small groups as possible throughout the day in doing this. The sample schedule that you can see, the first thing that you should notice in terms of the difference between the flexible schedule model at the elementary level and the all-virtual model is that we do not have that Wednesday day as a day for just mainly asynchronous learning. Office hours is what we were calling for with the flexible model, professional development for the teachers, and additional preparation time. Our goal is to have 5 days of synchronous instruction. This sample schedule you're looking at is for a sample elementary school student. So this could be, for example, a third grade student at any one of our elementary schools. And this is just a snapshot of what it would look like maybe for a particular student in a cohort 1 section. We would have a morning meeting time still built into the day because we really feel it's important to still touch on that social and emotional learning piece. We're going to do our very best. While it will not be the same, we recognize it, to build that classroom community, and we thought it was imperative to make sure that we built that time into the day. As much as we know that we need to focus on remediation and filling in the gaps from last spring and continuing to move our students forward in terms of their academics and achievement, we know that that morning meeting time in classroom community is still very essential. We also are going to build in some synchronous reading time. We have our multi-tiered system of support in our small group breakout. Again, making sure that we're challenging our students that are on grade level, at or above grade level, and also making sure that we pull out even smaller groups and having reading specialists, classroom teachers, working with some of our students who perhaps are below grade level, maybe filling in those gaps that we know exist from the spring into the start of this school year. We also build in some time for some brain breaks. We know it's a lot for students, for children to sit in front of a computer screen as it is for adults. And we want to make sure that we're going to build in this time for brain breaks for students to have an opportunity to get up, move around, and make sure that they're staying engaged as best possible. And of course, we're going to round out the day with a synchronous math lesson as well. And then we're going to provide an opportunity for the students and the teachers to have a bit of a break. That time between 11 and 1 o'clock that you can see on the schedule is really meant for the teachers to have an opportunity to step away themselves, to have their own lunch, to have prep time. Also, there's going to be some extra time built in there for some meetings that the teachers are going to have and professional development. And for the students, again, that's an opportunity for them to take a break. If you're in that cohort 1, you've been in front of the computer live synchronously for the majority of the morning. Take a break, step back, and then get back to it after that break at approximately 1 o'clock for some asynchronous work. In social studies, in math and reading, and also in specials. So this is not to say that every special is going to happen from 3 to 3:30. For a student in cohort 1 in the morning, that could happen anytime between 1 and 3:30. And we're going to make sure that we're scheduling that just like we would for a normal student in a normal school day, in a regular traditional school setting. The asynchronous social studies and math and reading are really going to build on the skills, especially with math and reading, that they were taught in the morning. If you're in cohort 2, if a student is in cohort 2, basically it's just going to look the complete opposite. All that asynchronous learning and your synchronous, live synchronous specials class is going to happen in the morning, and in the afternoon, it's going to be much more heavy with that synchronous instruction from your teacher in mathematics, reading, and getting that social and emotional learning time, that classroom community building as well. For kindergarten, I think it's important to note that we are still, again, going to have an AM and a PM session. Just keep in mind that our kindergarten program has always been a half-day program. So there's not going to be our expectation that kindergarten students are going to log in the morning, have a full morning of synchronous learning from their teachers, and then have a full afternoon for a kindergartner of asynchronous time with specialists as well. That is specific to grades 1 through 5. What the kindergarten day would look like is identical to what you're seeing on this screen. If you're in cohort 1 in the morning as a kindergartner, you are going to access that morning meeting time, reading time, some breakout small group, multi-tiered system of support for reading, and then we're going to have that math time built in as well. So the schedule would look basically the same for the kindergarten students as it would grades 1 through 5, with the exception of that either afternoon or morning, depending on which cohort you're in, asynchronous part of the day. It would only be a half day for our kindergartners. So that is the elementary draft virtual schedule that we are looking at. Again, our goal is to maximize that synchronous real-time instruction. We know also it's very important to note, especially for our youngest students at the elementary level, that the first few weeks of school, we know that we are going to have to spend a lot of time just bringing the students up to speed on what this is going to look like. If we are back in school in a traditional setting, it's the same thing. We have to establish routines and procedures and expectations. We plan to do the exact same thing for our students in a virtual setting to start the year off and to make sure that we're getting it right. We also plan to do the same thing for our families, to make sure that we are pushing out tutorials for our families so they understand, so they can help support their children as they are accessing the virtual learning system. We do plan to use Schoology for our asynchronous learning. We've been testing out the conferencing feature on Schoology, and while it does have some features that we really like, our plan is more than likely at this point to move forward with the Zoom feature, the Zoom conferencing feature, to be able to provide the synchronous learning opportunities. But that's something we have to 100% definitively decide on. But right now we're exploring the options of both and just leaning a bit more towards Zoom because it's a little bit more user-friendly, especially on the teacher end. And it is what a lot of our teachers were using in the spring of last year as well. So, Dr. McGarry, unless you have any questions for me specific to this schedule, I'll allow Dr. Manfrey to give an overview of the middle and high school schedule.
No, Frank, great job. I just want to reiterate, just to be clear, what I said earlier. Also, moving to this virtual model will buy us some time to implement some of the other pieces of our health plan. I just want to be clear about the temperature checks. And I want to read the recent guidance from the Chester County Department of Health regarding health screening. And I want to emphasize this based on what Mr. Salerno just presented. Our goal is to get students back in school. I believe every superintendent in the state, if not in the country, wants kids back in school. That's our plan. We think we can serve best with students in school. And maybe by going virtual, it will allow us to get there in the safest possible way and the smartest way. And trying to get that number below 5% that will allow us to get there. But we're going to need your help, and I should have emphasized this earlier. So I want to read this from the Chester County Department of Health and some of the CDC guidelines. We have to make sure as parents and guardians with kids and ourselves as adults that when we have a presence of a fever or elevated temperature, that we really now more than ever have to be smart about how we take care of ourselves, because by doing that, it allows us to get closer to what we would call normal prior to March 13th, whatever that looks like now. If you have a presence of any kind of COVID-19 symptoms, in this health screening, the CDC recommends to kind of quarantine yourself and make sure that everything's okay. Be aware of your recent travel history. Obviously the CDC is coming out with restrictions. The list of restrictions is growing. But we really have to be very wise and smart about how we're handling things. What's also come out of our conversations is the contact tracing. If anybody who's listening to this call has been exposed to COVID-19 or has been COVID-19 positive, what I'm finding out in my conversations with medical experts is that individuals are not readily sharing who they were around. And as a result, it makes it even more difficult to contact trace exactly where things are happening. So it's really important that regardless of what plan the board picks tonight, that we do our own health screening and that we are really staying on top of any kind of fever or cough or anything, that we're smart about not sending our students or ourselves into that situation, because that would run the risk of us either closing or being in and out of school. That led us to a situation we wanted to do temperature checks. Regardless of the number of false positives from a temperature check, we felt that it would at least allow us to put eyes on our students, and just maybe even in the flu season, kids who had a high fever, we could keep them out of school. The problem right now is trying to staff the volume of extra hourly nurses to pull that off. And we're not there yet. So we had to revise our plan. We're still going to work on trying to have temperature checks if we have a return to school in a flexible model. But I wanted to be clear that if we were to open on August 31st, we would not be able to, as of August 31st, do the temperature checks. And by the way, it's not really recommended necessarily to have to do the temperature checks here locally, but we felt that it would be a wise plan, another added safety precaution to do so. But at this time, we cannot properly staff it, and we're going to continue to try to do that if the board elects us to open for in-person instruction. We would still continue to try to make that happen. So with that said, I do want to say that as Mr. Salerno finished his presentation, there were comments about clubs and sports and social activities. I want to make it clear that if the board moves to a virtual model before I ask Dr. Manfrey to review the middle school and the high school, we're going to make every effort to provide virtual clubs and virtual opportunities for students to get together that are not necessarily academic. But until further notice, we would also continue with our sports and after-school activities here on the campuses, practicing social distancing until those programs will be shut down by the PIAA. I want to be clear, this move is a move by the superintendent of schools and the board of school directors not being mandated as it was on March 13th. So our schools could still be accessed and we would still provide opportunities for students to practice and get ready for a program in the model that we have right now, which is a non-contact model, basically our non-mandatory workouts in pods that we have in our athletic plan. We would most likely implement and continue our athletic plan through September into October and not really begin any competition or competitive sports until we feel that we're ready to do that. And we're going to keep an eye on what other Delaware County school districts are doing. But we would keep clubs, either virtually or if it's possible in person, practicing social distancing, and our athletics would continue under the same process we have right now approved in our health plan, practicing social distancing and non-mandatory workouts with students here on the campus. Dr. Manfrey, please move forward with the middle school and high school.
Dr. McGarry, thank you very much. I also want to send out congratulations and well done to the team at the secondary level. Mrs. Simone and her team of assistant principals did a phenomenal job putting together the high school schedule. Matt Alloway and Dr. Alloway and Dr. Yassone also did a phenomenal job of putting together this schedule. And I do want to reiterate what Dr. McGarry said regarding the Highland Park Neighborhood Planning Unit, NPUs. That catchment area in the virtual model will be going back to Beverly Hills Middle School. And the reason for that is section size. If you remember back when we did the flexible model, we moved the Highland Park students to Drexel Hill Middle School because of the larger classrooms. But when we go virtual, we want to make sure that the sections are as even as possible because unlike the elementary school, at the middle school level and the high school level, we will not continue with the cohort model in the virtual setting. So teachers will be teaching a full class of students, which is really important for us to select a really good system, whether it's Zoom or Schoology, where the teacher has complete control over, for example, microphones or cameras and things of that nature, which will enable optimal classroom management. So Highland Park students will be going back to the Beverly Hills Middle School in the virtual setting. Basically, the two middle schools, both Beverly Hills Middle School and Drexel Hill Middle School, schedules are very similar, with the basis of it being the early dismissal schedule. The only difference is that Drexel Hill Middle School students will begin the day at 8:30 and end the day synchronously at 12:52. And Beverly Hills Middle School students will begin the day at 8 a.m. and end their synchronous day at 12:22. So at the middle school level, you will have synchronous learning for all of the morning and a little bit of the afternoon. and the rest of the learning that will occur at the middle school level will be asynchronous learning. At Beverly Hills Middle School and both Drexel Hill Middle School, the class periods will be 31-minute periods. There will be 2-minute transition time in between each period. Again, unlike the elementary school, there's not as many breaks built into the middle school schedule as perhaps we would like, considering how rigorous it is to be learning virtually. But we do have brain breaks built in as well. We took the normal lunchtime schedule for the middle school's early dismissal schedule and turned those into brain breaks where principals, assistant principals, possibly counselors, social workers, lead teachers will be providing students with asynchronous or synchronous strategies on how to take a brain break using the strategies and information that we've learned over the course of the spring from our partners at Lakeside Neurologic to help students really recalibrate their brains and be ready to move forward with a continuation of synchronous learning. So 31 minutes, 8 periods a day, and then for Beverly Hills Middle School, the hours of 1:10 and 2:40, they will be doing the asynchronous instruction, meaning similar to what they did between March 13th and May 29th, they will be doing work that will prepare them for the synchronous instruction that is going to occur the next day. So again, AM is synchronous, PM is asynchronous, 2-minute transition between each period, brain breaks are built in, synchronous instruction totals 217 minutes, asynchronous instruction 121 minutes, and as Dr. McGarry indicated, these mandates, these Act 80 mandates do not go away. The mandated 180 days are still there, and the mandated 990 hours are still there. In fact, total instructional hours at the middle school level will be 1,014 hours. Really, Mr. Rogers, I know you're controlling the screen there. I believe you're controlling the screen. The only difference, again, that I want to reiterate between the Drexel Hill Middle School schedule and the Beverly Hills Middle School schedule is timing. So the Drexel Middle School schedule will begin at 8:30, and the Beverly Hills Middle School schedule will begin at 8. As far as the teachers are concerned, what they're going to be doing in the afternoon, really very important as well, because it provides students with the opportunity to do check-ins with teachers at the middle school level who will be having office hours. So between the hours of 1 and 2, all middle school teachers or Drexel Hill Middle School teachers will be participating in professional development. Beverly Hills Middle School's professional development time will be between 12:30 and 1:30. Then we have prep time and office hours time built into the middle school schedule. And what we've done is we've created 2 different blocks of time so that half of the staff will be on the prep when the other half of the staff is doing their office hours. And by doing this, we've given kids the opportunity to check in with their teachers more often. You know, maybe you're a kid who feels like you need to check in with his English language arts teacher, but his English language and his world language teacher. If they had prep and office hours at the same time, that would make that difficult. So Brian, your son, and Matt Alloway came up with a plan, which I think is really a smart plan, enables teachers to have half the teachers doing prep, half the teachers doing office hours, and enables our kids to have more opportunity to interact with their teachers during that time. That's the middle school schedule in a nutshell. Dr. McGarry, if you have anything you'd like to add or ask any questions, I'm happy to field those.
Yes, I just, seeing comments and things that are coming in that we'll get to later on, but I just want you and Frank to just also talk about, we're going to work with families. And I want to be clear, the emails and the comments that are coming in, I understand the frustration. Believe me, the frustration is as much on our side as on anyone else's. If we could get back to a normal situation, we would. As far as asynchronous and synchronous work, there are as many people frustrated with us not providing synchronous instruction as there are those who want asynchronous instruction. But we do know this, that we're required by the state of Pennsylvania, which is different than when we were in March 13th, that we have to account for the hours of instruction and the days of instruction. The board on July 14th passed a resolution committing to the time. Our teachers have a contract of a start time and an end time in the school day. Putting an expectation that asynchronous work is going to be happening and teachers are going to be doing double development of that as well as teaching students, it's a lot. We're going to do our best for families that need additional help beyond the school day and that accessing synchronous work by perhaps recording lessons so that people can go back and revisit them are considerations that we're going to have with our teachers union as we build to the beginning of the school year. But I will be clear that making an asynchronous only model was not successful completely for all of our students. We also believe that some level of direct instruction is important. From a lot of the work that we've done and we've looked into, students being in contact with their teachers, hearing their voice, seeing them at times is important. And that's why we are making an emphasis as much as possible for synchronous instruction, let alone the requirements for attendance, for making sure that students have access to their teacher during the school day are the reasons why we're pushing for synchronous instruction. Frank, if you want to comment on that, or Greg, please let me know.
Yes, Dr. McGarry. I think it's a good point. I think that flexibility is going to be absolutely paramount to this plan being successful. And as it was in the spring, I think that one thing that we need to make clear for our teachers and for the families is that, synchronous instruction, while there is going to be time with a teacher in front of the screen, in front of students live, that is not going to be the case for all of the time in the morning, for example, for cohort 1. While that time is going to be synchronous and teachers are going to be providing instruction live, that does not mean a teacher is going to be in front of the screen speaking to the students the entire time, just as they wouldn't in a classroom. It's just not sound pedagogy to be up in front of the class with the teacher doing all of the talking. There is going to be times where the students are going to be breaking away from the teacher, potentially breaking out into smaller groups, virtually, doing some independent practice during that time. So I think it's important to note that just because we're developing this synchronous schedule and our expectation is that there is some level of live instruction, that does not mean that the students are going to be in front of the computer and the teacher is going to be in front of them for the entire time during the AM or the PM, depending on which cohort the students are in. The flexibility is going to be key. If there are reasons that the student can't access the lesson on the given day or is having problems with internet connections, obviously we're going to be as flexible as we possibly can to meet the needs of the students. And it's going to be an approach where we're layering the instruction with asynchronous opportunities for the students to have that practice. It's by no means is our expectation for our youngest students to sit in front of the computer and to have our teachers hold their attention for hours on end, just delivering live instruction and teaching them new information the entire time. That is not what our intention is.
Greg, thanks. Frank, thanks. Before I turn it over to Greg, I just want to emphasize again as well, some of the emails that are coming in, I know it's complicated. We don't have the same flexibility we did on March 13th. So again, the board, we've submitted a plan for flexible instruction, which is only 5 days. We are still accountable right now for 900 at the elementary school level, 450 hours at the kindergarten level, and 450 hours for CTE students, and 990 hours of instruction for middle school and high school students. The structure also is that our teachers in their current contract are bound to this schedule, as is the Board of School Directors. So the time that we have to work with our staff and our students, that's what we're working with and we're presenting to people. And Frank, absolutely, we're going to be flexible, but we are still under the same mandates, testing, all the services we have to provide. This is not an emergency closure. This is a closure, this is a move to another model of instruction based on the circumstances that we have right now. Again, we'll continue to work with families and we'll work with teachers about recording lessons, and if students need to access it at a different time, that's fine. But I have to be clear, and I don't know if Mr. Berman, our solicitor, is on this call tonight, but I want to be clear. We have to make sure that we're accountable for the student attendance. That's been made crystal clear by the Department of Health, by the Department of Education, and then our plan, any plan we approve, does not forgive us from keeping attendance records for students, and if students are not attending, we're going to be held accountable for that. Mr. Berman, is that accurate?
Yes, that is accurate.
Thank you. Dr. Manfrey, anything you'd like to add?
No, Dr. McGarry, I'll only add that I neglected to indicate what Mr. Salerno had indicated in the beginning of his presentation, which is just like the beginning of any school year, K to 12, we will be working with students to kind of work them through what the expectations are, how to log in synchronously, what the instruction is going to look like. Teachers are going to be working with our supervisors and our coaches on best practice. So all of those things we realize have to be worked out, and we're going to be very patient with our families and our students. But at the same time, I think the synchronous instruction is important to the point that you were making regarding attendance and the number of instructional hours, et cetera, that we have to be sure that we're abiding by. If you'd like, I can move on to the high school virtual proposed schedule.
Yes, please do.
So let me start just with the length of the school day. And unlike the middle school plan, the high school plan has a combination of synchronous and asynchronous instruction going on throughout the day. So teachers will begin at 7:10 a.m., which is their contracted time that they need to be in school from 7:10 to 7:30. This time is going to be used at the administration's discretion and also provide students with an opportunity to check in with those teachers during that 20 minutes prior to the time where students are mandated to start their asynchronous day. Asynchronous instruction for students will begin at 7:30 and go to 8:15. In between each period, in between each section of the schedule, there will be a 5-minute break for our high school students. So from 8:15 to 8:20, between the first asynchronous session and the first synchronous section, you can see that there's a 5-minute break built in there. From 8:20 to 9:05, and let me just hit the pause button for a second and backtrack. There's some language that I'm going to be using, some vocabulary that I think it's important that our audience and our board understand. When I refer to a course as being a skinny, or when I say the word skinny, essentially what that means is I'm taking a block during the regular school day and cutting it in half. Those periods exist backed up to our lunches. So we need these periods, these skinnies, for things like music, reading, our AP classes, our advanced pacing classes have a combination of a full period and a skinny period. Keystone Prep, helping our students who needed help from the previous semester. So these skinnies are required to be built into the high school schedule, and Mrs. Simone and her team did an excellent job of figuring out a way to do that. So when you hear me say skinny, which I haven't yet, that's what I'm referring to. So you can see that the first period or first block of time where synchronous instruction is going on, 8:20 to 9:05, 5-minute break, then you have your second period. And where it says staff office hours under period, that is where the first skinny period is taking place. And again, students who are music students, students who are reading students, students who are taking advanced placement courses, possibly some students who need some Keystone Prep, those students will be getting synchronous or asynchronous instruction during that skinny period. So some staff will be teaching, but some staff will have the ability to touch base with students through office hours. You can see that there's a 5-minute break after that skinny. Then we go into the third block or third period class of synchronous instruction until 11:15. And then, that should say 11:15. And then there's a 5-minute break. And then at 11:20, we begin our fourth block or fourth period class. We have a 60-minute lunch built in for the staff and for food distribution for students. One thing I did now reading the schedule, neglect to mention at the middle school level, between 12:22 and 1:10 at Beverly Hills Middle School, we'll have the students picking up their lunch. And between 12:52 and 1:40 at Drexel Hill Middle School, they will have the ability to pick up their lunch. At the high school, lunch for everybody will be between 12:05 and 1:05. And then we go down to our next skinny. Also, the high school administration is referring to this as a parent communication opportunity for parents to communicate with teachers or teachers to communicate with parents. We feel this is essential for our classroom teachers to be able to reach out to parents of students who potentially aren't logging in synchronously for whatever reason, either having difficulty with the device or with the internet. And we have our teachers being made available to help students with that or to help with academic material. Then we have our learning community or duty between 1:35 and 2:05. This is where students at Upper Darby High School will have the opportunity to get some kind of trauma-informed care brain break with our lead teachers, our assistant principals, our counselors, our social workers, some PBIS lessons, some mentoring, things of that nature. So some of our teachers will be on duty doing those learning communities. Other teachers will be doing other duties. Then there will be a break. You'll see that this break is 6 minutes. Just in terms of the end of the day, we had to change the break time from 5 to 6 minutes. Staff office hours and the fourth skinny will be from 2:11 to 2:41. And then from 2:41 to 3:01, we have teachers only, which is contractual time, similar to the early morning time. And this is also an opportunity for students to be able to request to meet with staff as needed. The total daily Act 80 instructional minutes, as you can see, is 345 minutes a day, which is 5 3/4 hours a day, which is 1,035 hours, meeting the mandated 990 hours mandated by Act 80. The other pages, Mr. Rogers, are just definitions of things that we talked about, synchronous instruction, what learning communities look like, what kind of things are going to be talked about in those learning communities. One thing I will mention, that for learning community period, 11th and 12th graders, that period will count as one credit towards the 26 that they need to get for graduation. For 9th and 10th graders, it does not, because I'll remind you, the current 10th graders, rising 9th graders in the 10th and rising 8th graders in the 9th, will be under the new 21 credit opportunity for students to leave at 21 credits. That concludes the high school schedule presentation.
With that said, I just want to revisit again some of the plans and some of the data that questions that are coming in. When we surveyed the community, and I think I said this on July 28th, I can't remember at this point in time which meeting it was, but I believe I commented on the fact that of the close to 13,000 students that we serve here in the school district, the response rate was under 15%, and I think there were a lot of concerned parents at that time, so much so that when our survey closed, we did have parents reaching out and saying, you know what, Dr. McGarry, I want to switch. I don't want to come in for in-person. I want to now switch to virtual. And then there were many parents, again, who also reached out to us and said, stick with it, stick with the in-person model, even recently as today. I'm sure there'll be comments coming in tonight to do that. So I think it's important that we talk about how serious this decision is and the data. So we received about less than 15% of those who attend our schools responded to the survey. In that data, we know that of the under the 15% who responded, It was about, around 3,000 some odd students, families who individually responded. There were some duplicates in that data that we had to work our way through. But roughly a little under 3,000 students, individual students, selected virtual only. That's about 20 to 25% of our student population. 1,000 of the 3,000 or so responses were elementary, and the remaining, a little bit around 2,000 or more, were selecting virtual. So that means there was still 75% or a little bit close to that who either did not feel comfortable responding at that time or still are, considering what their options are. So it's important that we keep an eye on what we're looking at. The information continues to be, however, you need staff to run in-person instruction. And I think all these factors come into play, that our teachers union was willing to work with us, and I appreciate that. But with the current trends in the data, we might be putting, we most likely would be putting teachers in a situation and students in a situation that would become untenable potentially, given the uncertainty of this virus and the spread of this virus, that we'd have to close again and be inconsistent with what we're trying to offer. So again, I just want to emphasize again, please be patient with us. I know there's questions coming in and there's concerns. We are not making this decision lightly. If we could open schools for in-person instruction, I'd be the first person to push for that with the flexible model that we have. But right now, my recommendation, Board President Brown, and to the board would be for your consideration for the recommendation to reopen schools in a virtual model, and we'll continue to work with families to meet their needs and the community needs that we have. And we'll continue to revisit this, I would say, probably at the October meeting to see what the data trends are and to see what other options we have in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McGarry, and the rest of your team for the comprehensive information. The instruction and curriculum report, Mrs. Curry.
Thank you, President Brown. The instruction and curriculum report for virtual, synchronous, and asynchronous instruction is in the hands of each board member and has been made available to the public. I move for its adoption.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the board? Oh, I need a second. I'm sorry.
This is Dr. Haig. I will second. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear for just a moment. Ms. Curry moved that the virtual and synchronous and asynchronous report is the report we're voting on. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you for seconding. I think you seconded. Thank you, Ms. Curry, for making the motion.
As long as that's what it is, then yes, I can.
Yes, thank you very much,
Yes,
Dr. Haig.
that's what it is.
So I think we have a motion for the instruction and curriculum report for virtual, synchronous, and asynchronous instruction, and we had it properly seconded. So now I'm going to ask, are there any comments from the board?
This is Dr. Haig again. I believe I have the first comment. So I just want members of the community to understand, of course, we're all members of the community, and most of us are parents who either have children in the district now or have very, very, very recently. And that I have twin 5-year-olds who will be starting virtual kindergarten. I am as unhappy about this as anyone. I just want people to understand we are not making these decisions lightly. We wish desperately that we could start with a virtual, a hybrid option, or even a fully in-person option. We desperately wish for that. We're just not in the current situation prepared for that in terms of the way the numbers are looking, that we have to keep our community safe. We have to keep our healthcare workers safe and not overload our hospitals. And so please, I just want every community member to understand, we are right there with you. I am going to be working from home with 2 5-year-olds trying to get them to learn virtually this fall. So we hear you. It is going to be really hard. We are going to do everything that we can to make it, to take away as many of the difficulties as we can. But please just know we take this very seriously and we're doing the best we can.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Haig. Mr. Desnoyers?
Thank you, President Brown. I would like to say that this is a very significant decision we are faced with, and the administration, the board, the teachers, the other staff have worked very hard to gather information so that we have the best information on which to base our vote, and it would be really nice if in reviewing the massive amounts of information we did, that if we could have found a silver bullet that would have allowed us to either open in a flexible cohort model or open fully in person. But in this pandemic, the only silver bullet is a vaccine, and that is still some months away. So the only time we'll know it's perfectly safe is when a vaccine is available and a sufficient portion of the population has gotten vaccinated. I do feel for all the I do feel for all the families and the strain this is going to put on them.
Thank you, Mr. Desnoyers. Mrs. Curry.
Thank you, President Brown. This is Mrs. Curry. I just would like to extend my sincere appreciation to all of the community members, teachers, administrators, and to Superintendent McGarry for the incredible amount of work that has been put into making this incredibly hard decision. There are so many things that we have had to do to figure out what, and again, there's no children, teachers, parents, community members. There's no good answer here. And I just want to express my sincere grief, actually, for what the coronavirus has actually taken away from my own personal family with a graduating senior this year, and for now a fifth grader who may not be able to see a full year in her classroom. And so I just wanted to say to everybody who's on the call and for the community members to know that, as Dr. Haig expressed so eloquently, we are parents, a lot of us on this board, and we are struggling with the same decision. So I just ask that everybody understand that we are trying to make the best decision. And again, there is no great answer, but I just wanted to let everyone know the anguish that I've been experiencing trying to figure out how to do this. And I just appreciate you all so much. Thank you very much.
Okay, next, Mr. Fields.
Thank you, President Brown. I just want to say that I was a huge fan of the hybrid model. I could not have designed a better way for a child to start middle school, especially coming from a small elementary school and going to what is an overcrowded middle school. The hybrid model would have had 10 kids to a class, 2.5 days a week. I thought it would have been a great way to start. But it is not the safest model. And in this case, we really do have to do what is safest. We have whole communities that have 3 generations living in a household, and there's a lot of considerations that have to be taken from a health perspective with that, from a public health perspective. Running an underfunded district is difficult enough. Running the same district during a pandemic, well, let's say it's incredibly difficult. If nothing else, it magnifies the already existing inequities. I'm going to ask this Upper Darby School District community to practice patience, to support each other, to ask questions before making assumptions and accusations. If there is a problem, email the district, talk it out. Give these administrators and these teachers a chance, just a chance, to resolve the issue. We are all trying to navigate unknown territory, and for all intents and purposes, we are on our own. The best thing we can do now is support each other. I want to thank Dr. McGarry, all the administrators, all the teachers, all the support staff for all their hard work, their input, and their patience. I would also like to give Dr. McGarry a chance to briefly speak about what the district will be doing to meet the needs of our IEP and our other special ed other special ed students.
Thank you, board member Don Fields. For us, students who have IEPs, as I said before, even during the school closure in March, we're obligated to meet the needs of our students. That's why we believe the synchronous instruction is even more important. We knew that during the March 13th closure of last year that we were all dipping our toes into this new wave of education here for us, at least in Upper Darby. And we know that we had an opportunity to step up our game this year. In particular, special education students that are English learners, another population of students, we've been purchasing software and resources to better support students in either one of these categories. We're obligated to provide what is called a free and appropriate public education, known as FAPE, for students that are special education students. And as you can see in the schedules we provided, it's clearly outlined that there will be opportunities for direct instruction for students that need it in their IEPs, students that need to check in or families that need to check in with case managers, IEP case managers, supports and services that are in place are necessary. There may be opportunities for us as we explore this, as we continue to move forward with it. I know Ed Marshallak is in the room, so he's not able to comment tonight, but there might be situations for some occupational therapy or speech therapy, some things that at times, as we move through this, that we may have sometimes for students to have to get some of those services or evaluations or meeting with parents in person in our buildings. Again, our schools are not closed as they were on March 13th, so we're going to be flexible in how we deliver some of these services. But all the virtual models, we took this into consideration, and that we will be obligated to meet the needs of our students virtually and deliver the IEP that's in place for those students. So we'll be providing those opportunities throughout the school day. And as Mr. Fields and Ms. Curry said, that none of these decisions are easy, and we have to work with each other. And if we're making a mistake, as a parent, you feel like we're doing something, we need to step up our game, you certainly can contact us and let us know, and we're going to continue to give our best that we can. But we will be meeting IEP services under this model.
Thank you, Dr. McGarry. Mrs. Mitchell. Mrs. Mitchell. We'll come back to you. You may be having audio problems. Mr. Warsavage.
Thank you, President Brown. I'll keep my comments brief. When you are on a school board, sometimes you have to lead, sometimes you have to follow. And in this season of decision making, I found myself doing, as far as our plans about schools go, I found myself doing a lot of following, leaning on advice from people who have the proper lived experience, education, and all those kinds of things. And I'm talking about parents who will be absolutely affected by whatever decision is made. All the other stakeholders within the district, the professionals, the elected officials that we work with to make things go smoothly as possible, because in these times there's so many different things, different variables up in the air. We want to give everyone some semblance of peace and consistency, which is why we are so deliberate in making these plans. But I also want to mention that take 2020 as a whole and understand that each of us as individuals in this community have gone through an absolutely unprecedented amount of trauma. And I'm not talking necessarily physical trauma. I'm talking about mental trauma. and talking about emotional trauma. And sometimes that leads us to articulate or behave in a certain way that we might not otherwise have chosen in a clearer headspace. So as we go into this next season of making sure that our students are taught to are given the best possible 21st century public school educational experience possible, take time to take care of yourselves. Find a happy place. Center yourself. Know that not everything can be done in a day, in a week, or in a month, but if we can do it together as we have been, and like Director Fields had mentioned, don't be afraid to ask the right questions. Work with us. I think we can get really far no matter what plan is decided. So thank you for the time.
Thank you. We'll try Mrs. Mitchell again. Okay, we'll try you after Mr. Neal.
Thank you, President Brown. Thank you to the administration for all your hard work regarding these plans. I do have a question regarding special education. You had mentioned, and this is for administration, Dr. McGarry, I believe he brought up that extracurricular activities may be occurring when appropriate. For instance, they had their pods, they're doing workouts, trainings, and such. Can that logic be applied to special education students that are enrolled in a multiple disabilities classroom or autistic support classroom, and have those students come in for in-person instruction, and then the staff requirements for that would be a lot less than the whole school? Because you did bring up that we could possibly bring elementary in first as we go back into an in-person instruction. So would that be possible?
At this point in time, Mr. Neal, I do not feel comfortable saying that we're going to require just special education teachers to come in versus what I was explaining right now is the return flexing in at the end of September and October would be based on recent trends in the data that if it's going below 5%, that we would start to phase back into our reopening plan with obviously the board's approval. For cohorts coming in, we would start with elementary school because, to be clear, we have to get our transportation department ready to go. There'd be a lot of work that we'd have to do that we've already been working on a pull-off for August 31st that we put into it, so that we would then slowly build back into this normal that we have now by bringing elementary school students in. If that were to happen in September or October, that would be because the trends are saying we feel that we're there. I'd like to try to bring everybody back in September or October, but I don't think we are equipped to pivot that quickly with everybody given the changes in boundaries and shifting some students from the middle school over to Drexel Hill. So I'm going to say this, the board can certainly decide what they'd like, but I don't think it's fair to say to one teacher to come in at some point in time right now when we're talking about the data trending in a different direction. But we'll talk about those things moving forward. I think in September and October, if the data trends speak to allowing us to have in-person instruction, we certainly can have that happen. I think to speak for Mr. Marszalek, who's here with me, I believe that we're going to do our best to meet the needs of every student in every special education category here in the school district, as well as our English learners. And where we need to adjust and make adaptations and be flexible, we're going to do that for the parents and the families. But just to be clear, without teachers, we can't do this. So without supporting teachers and without making this safe, instruction doesn't happen. So right now, based on the information that I have as a superintendent of this school district, I'm not so sure that starting the school year with in-person instruction, although I want to, is the way to go. And that's why I made the recommendation that I did. But if the data trends show us going in the opposite direction, which means a downward trend, we'll certainly come back to the board and make a decision at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
All right,
McGarry.
thank you, Dr. McGarry.
Mrs. Mitchell? I want to to get your comment or
Can
question.
you hear me, Mr.
Yes,
Brown?
now I can. Yes, now I can.
Okay, thank you. I'm
Mhm.
very sorry about
No problem.
that. I don't know what was happening. I just wanted to thank the administrative team as well as any staff members that participated in putting together these virtual plans in very short order. They are very extensive, and I appreciate all the time that is putting into it. I am reading the comments that are coming in as well as all of the other board members, and we also have been reading your comments on social media. I do want to encourage families as we embark on this journey together, because this is a journey of something that has never happened before, that instead of taking your frustration to social media, a lot of times the issues that you're experiencing can be rectified at the building level with your principals. I would encourage you to please email, stay in communication with the board, with your administration, with the principal, and especially with your child's teacher if things aren't going the way you hoped that they would go. With that being said, I just really would encourage you to do that. We are all in this together. This is not, a competition. I think you're going to see as the week goes on and next week, most districts are going to be considering this as well because the metrics in Upper Darby and our county are not looking good. But with that said, Dan, I just want to know if the health department has provided any type of, or the state, any type of reopening metrics to the districts at this point.
Yeah, so look, that question, Ms. Mitchell, is almost impossible to answer because there are no metrics right now that determine when it's the best to do it. In my conversation this morning, as at 11, prior to 11 o'clock today, when I had a meeting with other Delaware County superintendents, representation from Dr. Brennan from the Pennsylvania Hospital and from Dr. Rubin, also who's been working, and they don't necessarily oversee Delaware County, but they were kind enough to meet with us today, as well as the Chester County Department of Health. In my conversations today with those medical experts, that's when my opinion changed. Prior to 11 o'clock today, my attitude tonight was going to be to stick with our plan and reopen for hybrid flexible instruction. In fact, yesterday in speaking with the teachers union, we were all coming together to talk about how we can best support one another to do that. I think one of the most, and I want to say this tactfully because I don't want to put pressure on any one system supporting us, because I think everybody's learning as they go. Even the doctors that we're talking to are learning as they go. They're learning more information. At one time, young people were not getting sick, and that's changed. And now, recently, 15-year-olds to 29-year-olds are presenting. There's information about how it's impacting, not only short-term but long-term health. So, I want to answer that, because normally I'm pretty quick to respond to things. So, Ms. Mitchell, just if you could be patient with me, there are no metrics. As superintendents, we've been asking repeatedly, at what is the number that says it's safe for everybody to come back in? And really, to be honest, what the departments of health, at least Chester County Department of Health, has been trying to do for us, and I appreciate it, is this is how you can open schools, right? We're not going to tell you how to do things, but this is how you can open them. You can open them if you wear a mask. You can open them if you get to 6 feet. If you fall short of 6 feet, masks are required. They're giving us guidance, and we've posted that guidance. Every time the guidance has changed, we've posted it. If you read that guidance, you will not see a specific number or statistic that says it's 100% safe to do this at this time. What it says is social distancing and wearing masks are a big factor in being able to open schools. And when individuals do not follow social distancing and they are not wearing masks, it makes it very difficult for us to open schools. And that's the metrics that I can give you right now. And I say that out of support of the Chester County Department of Health that's working with us and the doctors that are working with us. I appreciate their support. The other superintendents who are working unbelievably hard as well to try to figure this out. It's difficult, but there's no exact, as Mr. Desnoyer said, there's no exact metrics or data point right now that's going to make it perfect. And I know we all want that. I want that. I love a quick answer that makes the most sense, and I can't give that to you tonight. And I want to be careful. I don't want my message to be, I don't want to blame anybody. It's a virus. That's who's at fault here. Not one organization or anything else. I do think that opening schools slower first makes the most sense and made the most sense. And one of the doctors we're working with, Dr. Brennan from Penn, I know he spoke with the board as well, at the time felt that our flexible model was the way to go. As 11 o'clock today, there's a lot of trepidation opening schools, even in a flexible model. And in hearing that this morning, it made me change my opinion.
Thank you, Dr. McGarry.
Dan, I really appreciate that response. And I think one of the key things that the board has been seeing as we've been communicating with you and with your team is that this changes every day, sometimes within hours. And, while I appreciate the frustration that our community is feeling, we are all in this together. So thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions from board members? Okay, Ms. Buford, are there comments from the public?
There are several comments from the public on the instruction and curriculum report. There are several that are repeated, and according to our board policy, no participant may speak more than once on the same subject unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. And also, as with every other meeting, as with all of our meetings, we will hold to the 3-minute time limit. Mr. Rogers will help me to ensure that that happens. May I proceed?
Yes, please, thank you.
Our first comment is from Michelle Forbes at 3443 Verner Street, Drexel Hill. We received a comment on the 31st at 10:57 a.m. via email. Comment begins. If this meeting is intended to alter the established back-to-school plans, as other districts are doing, excuse me, for example, deciding to move to full virtual instead of in-person cohorts, I would like to know especially how IEPs will be handled. My son starts first grade in autism support and really struggled with online learning this spring. What plan will be provided to those students in particular, keeping in mind working parents who cannot spend hours sitting with their children to keep them tuned in to Zoom classrooms and therapies? Please continue to consider in-person teaching, at least part-time, for those kids with IEPs who require more hands-on learning and socialization. End of comment.
Now, Dr. McGarry, how do you want to handle that? Do you want to put the answers in the FAQs, or do you want to address it now? Some of the questions may be things you can answer quickly and put to rest, or some may require a little bit more work, so I'll leave it to your discretion.
Yes. I think it's important that we try to provide answers, but I think it's best if we do it in the FAQ following this tonight. I mean, I think the board knows where we are, but to make sure we get the comments in for this evening, we'll do it that way, and then we'll follow up in the FAQ as we move forward.
Sounds good. Next comment.
I also want to note that we have been answering some of these questions back through the committee questions, especially special ed questions. Our second question is from Kelly Bowie, located at 709 Central Avenue, Primus, received on the 31st at 1:08 p.m. via email. Comment begins, assuming a decision is made on August 4th to go with a virtual-only model for the 2021 school year, is there a reason that a reassessment can't be done quarterly rather than at the half? Again, thank you for doing everything to keep our kids safe and educated. End of comment. Next comment is from Elizabeth Ryan, 5211 Whitehall Drive in Clifton Heights. The comment was received on the 31st at 7 o'clock p.m. via email. I'm writing with a question about gifted support services as it is related to the middle school specifically. One of my children has been in the gifted support program with the GIEP for the past 4 years. My child benefits greatly from this wonderful program, and the gifted seminar is her favorite part about school. How will gifted support services, aka gifted seminar, work for students who attend in-person modified schedule school? And how will gifted support services work for students that elect to have 100% virtual education? I have heard a lot regarding special education and life skills support services being discussed. However, nothing specifically about children with GIEPs who attend the gifted support program seminars once or twice per week at their respective school, as well as gifted support specialized education in all of their other general classes. Although I am unsure if I am correct, it is my belief that gifted support education and services are lumped under the special education umbrella. However, when special education services are mentioned during school district, school board meetings are mentioned in the email updates that are sent out to parents and are mentioned within the FAQs link, gifted education has not been specifically mentioned as far as I have read. I have elected the 100% virtual option for my children for this coming school year, with plans to reevaluate in December, January. However, if the gifted support program and services will differ greatly between students who attend in-person school and students who elect 100% virtual school, then I may change my mind about what is best for my gifted child. Moving forward, I have a request as to when special education services are discussed, that gifted support services are also included in those discussions and mentioned as appropriate. Thank you so very much for all the dedicated hard work and your very good communication that the district and board are displaying during this difficult transitional time. It is very appreciated by many parents, including myself. The next comment is from Laura Silvas, located at 534 Mason Avenue. Comment received on August 1st at 12:45 via email. Opportunity, unity, and excellence are the values this district states to uphold. Excuse me. I applaud the school board for their valiant efforts to assemble, examine, and scrutinize the ways the school year can proceed with providing excellent educational opportunities for the youth of Upper Darby School District while seeking unity among the varied opinions and concerns of the community regarding health safety. I've been watching the decisions being made carefully, and while I would prefer children have more in-person teaching time, I have been making plans for the flexible schooling model already adopted by the board, as are many I expect. And I am coming to terms with the less than optimal education available to our children this year. As the superintendent repeats in his messages, no plan is perfect. I was disheartened to hear all of the clamor on social media about going all virtual, and now that another meeting was called, I feel it is important to share my opinion. Going all virtual would be a mistake. I will share my reasonings below, but before getting into those, I would like to point out that the board has been fair in deciding to choose a flex model. It offers both in-person and virtual learning. Those who are worried can choose the all-virtual plan. Those of us who are deeming it more important for an in-person education should also have some sort of fulfillment of wishes. Going all virtual would be unjust and wrong, not just for this reasoning, but for the sake of our children's education and future, and thus this community's excellence. The reasons are on all virtual platform would be wrong are explained below. The CDC has already laid out the many reasons it is important for children to attend school. For one, virtual learning is much less effective than in-person learning for children, and the low-income and minority populations are even more adversely affected. Do we want to do that to our community? Achievement gaps already exist based on the data offered in the article from the CDC. And there is a link here, and I believe she quotes from the link from the CDC about child care reopening schools. And the quote reads, "A study by researchers at Brown and Harvard universities assessed how 800,000 students used Zearn, an online math program, both before and after schools closed in March 2020. Data showed that through late April, student progress in math decreased by about half, with a negative impact more pronounced in low-income zip codes. Persistent achievement gaps that already existed before COVID-19, such as disparities across income levels and races, can worsen and cause serious, hard-to-repair damage to children's education outcomes. Secondly, without in-person school attendance, children are also going to lose opportunities to develop social skills, friendships, and good behavior skills associated with authority figures. Children are also more likely to engage in unhealthy behaviors and develop behavior problems. Again, citing from the CDC, further, a review of studies conducted on pandemics. Are we at the 3? Can we have an audible?
That's met the 3-minute time limit for the comment, and the remainder of the comment will be copied and quoted directly in the school board minutes. So any of the remainder comment that was not addressed here will be listed in the board meeting's minutes to be approved at the next board meeting.
Our next comment is from Jasmine Moy, located at 309 Clearbrook Avenue in Lansdowne. Comment received on the 1st at 3:23 via email. Recent news reported that Delaware County has had a significant increase in the number of COVID cases, resulting in the highest number of cases in Pennsylvania as of July 30th, 2020. I'm wondering if this information will be factored into extra protection or the option to reopen the enrollment into all virtual learning, as some families may find this development alarming. Also, what will happen if a teacher or student tests positive for COVID-19? How and when will we be notified? Thank you for your attention to this matter. I look forward to the meeting. Next comment is from Michelle Ko, located at 134 Ivy Court in Upper Darby. Comment received on the 2nd at 12:53 p.m. via voicemail. Comment is transcribed as the following. I am the mother of a Highland Park student. I want to know that my question is if the board, when making the decision of going viral or hybrid, take into consideration of students who may be neglected or abused, and that school is their only outlet of being taken care of or getting some release from their at-home environment, and what mental or physical abuse might be going on if we go viral, virtual is what she meant, and what type of impact that might have on them for the next 3 months, and if it's worth that to really go all internet, because that will really be impactful for those students, and what kind of decisions or what type of help will be given to those students to make sure they are taken care of, and really what kind of outreach will the school district have for those students. What kind of outreach and outsources will the school board and school district provide? What type of social work will the school board be providing to make sure that those students are being taken care of if we do indeed go completely virtual, since they will not be getting that release to be going to school this year? Thank you. End of comment. Next comment is from Mohammed Najib, located at 122 Wellington Road in Upper Darby. Comment received on the 2nd at 2:59 p.m. via voicemail. Comment begins, I am the father of 2 kids in the school district. I am feeling scared for COVID-19 because the kids, they're very little. They don't have good defense. They can't maintain social distance or other things that are going to provide us. So the decision is keep online class until there is a vaccination, and schools should not be opening. End of comment. Next comment, Jodine Duarte, located at 628 Shadeland Avenue in Drexel Hill. Comment received on the 2nd at 6:39 p.m. via email. Comment begins, first, let me thank the school board, school administrators, and teacher representatives who have put so much hard work into analyzing the options for our kids' education this coming school year. I believe you all have done an excellent job in balancing the desires, fears, and needs of a very diverse community. That is precisely why I believe the flex model plan that you have already announced is the right plan for our district and should be kept as the opening plan for our schools. The flex model plan is the best option to give families a choice, and choice is bolded, in how their children will learn. For those who believe in classroom instruction is important, it allows for that. But for those who prefer that their children stay at home, it also gives them the choice to do that. Moving to an all-virtual platform will take away all choice in the matter. I believe choice, quote unquote, is a valid option at this time, since the medical and health data support the flex option, given the schools maintain social distancing, which your plan does. I firmly believe that allowing our district parents to have a choice is essential. While many parents may feel their children learn best at home, there are many in our district who would be severely disadvantaged in an online-only platform. Additionally, some classes just can't be correctly learned, such as chemistry and physics, without some in-class instruction. I was in favor of the online last spring, since we were not prepared for this virus, nor did we know much about it. I don't believe that is the case now. I believe we know a lot more about how it spreads, and it's likely that many of our kids have already been exposed to it. The data is also showing that in our particular community, the spread is not spiking. Rather than panic and put a majority of our students at an educational disadvantage, I argue that the board and district should maintain the current flex model, which allows for parents to choose. Of course, this also allows for scaling back in the future should new health conditions warrant that. The board and district put a lot of hard work into this and came up with an excellent flex model that will meet the diverse needs of our community. This model provides families a choice based on need and preference. We should stick to it. Thank you for your time and consideration in reading this. End of comment. Next comment from Levon Powell, 1225 Harding Drive in Havertown, received on the 3rd at 12:10 via email. Comment begins, I had an opportunity to observe the virtual school board meeting on 7/28/20, and I have a question. During the public comments portion at the end, Dr. McGarry elaborated on one of the responses to a question asked regarding face masks and face shields, and explained the requirements for wearing masks the district will implement. He explained that students will be required to wear masks when traveling through school buildings and on school buses. However, he said because the students will be positioned at 6 feet distance in classrooms, they will not be required to wear masks in classrooms. I was surprised by this part of his statement because I assumed students would be required to wear masks the entire time they are in school for in-person learning. I elected for my child who attends DH to attend in-person sessions, and this causes me great concern. Would you please explain why this decision has been made? The students will be grouped for some time with teachers and other students who come from different households. We are already taking a risk because we do not know if any person in the classroom has been exposed to the virus at home or anywhere else they have been. We're hoping no one has been exposed. I believe requiring students to wear masks the entire time they are on school grounds will provide protection for each child as well as teachers. If a child has medical exemptions from wearing a mask, they should not attend in-person sessions due to the health risks. I'm asking for this decision to be reconsidered as I strongly believe the current plan will jeopardize the health of students and teachers. Thank you for your attention to this matter. End of comment. The next comment is from Heidi Hirschberger Esch, located at 135 Burmont Road in Drexel Hill. Comment received on the 3rd at 1:41 p.m. via email. Comment begins, as a medical provider, public health worker, and mother, I have major concerns regarding Upper Darby School District's decision to start in-classroom learning on August 31st as planned. Given the poor management of this pandemic on a national level, we are now in a position where COVID-19 is once again on the rise in the Philadelphia area and will continue to rise sharply if children are brought back to the classrooms before the pandemic is controlled. Any public health professional will give the same advice. Gatherings in closed spaces are unsafe if protecting lives and health is a goal. This is nobody's choice, but it is the unfortunate situation we are in, and we must adapt our plans to prioritize the safety of everyone, including parents, grandparents, family members, and friends that may not fare so well if exposed to COVID-19. And this paragraph is bolded. I strongly urge you to consider an 8 to 12-week, 100% virtual classroom plan, as many school districts in this region already have, with the intention to then reevaluate the appropriateness of bringing students and staff back to the classrooms. The following is unbolded. I can only imagine how difficult this decision must be for school boards right now. On one hand, students must keep learning and evolving, and on the other hand, we are told that resuming learning as we know it would be dangerous on many levels. I applaud all of the time and hours that have been put into the redesigning a school plan for the Upper Darby School District. My hope is for us to find a solution that keeps everyone safe and still supports learning. End of comment. Next comment is from Sabrina Cruz, located at 7 South Harwood Avenue in Upper Darby. Comment received on the 3rd at 2:36 p.m. via voicemail. Comment reads, I just have some questions in regard to the school reopening plan. I have a daughter with special needs. I watched a YouTube video and read the emails, and it's only been addressed one thing for children with special needs. I don't think that's fair, and I feel like that's discrimination, and I'm not sure if they forgot about the children, but specifically is talking about general ed students on all forms, it seems like. I'm not sure, but I have a child that's going to middle school, so I'm not sure if the high school or elementary school is different. All the information that was provided that I heard is that they would get 4 days. I have no information in regards to how many children will be in the classroom, and I don't want to assume that it's the same setup as the 4 days. And it says that she is in cohort 5 when I go to her login, but there is no cohort 5. So we parents have no information in regard to the children, and I wasn't providing any information as to if it's 4 days, and I allow her to go 2 days instead of 4 days. Is that okay? because I'm not sure that I want my daughter to go 4 days because my daughter has a health condition. She has a few health problems. I have no other information. I emailed the principal and the assistant principal. I have not gotten any response back, so I'm trying to get some clarification to how it will work for children that have special needs. I'm not sure if they can address these children. That will be a lot better and helpful for other parents. The information for the general ed, I feel like, was very well put out there. I liked the YouTube video, it was great, but it just wasn't focused on other children besides general ed, gen ed children. And I don't feel that that was fair. Thank you and have a great day. End of comment. The next comment is from Patty Watson, located at 43 Revere Road in Drexel Hill. Comment received on the 3rd at 5:43 p.m. via email. Comment begins, we've all heard about how students with IEPs will be attending in-person classes 4 days a week for personal instruction, which I believe is needed and great that the district is doing that. However, what we have not heard about is what students with GIEPs, about what, I'll read that again. However, what we have not heard is what about students with GIEPs. Seminar is typically considered an elective class, but it also challenges students and offers diverse opportunities. In March, UDH as seminar teachers attempted to continue the class, but it just seemed to quote-unquote fizzle out along with the opportunities. When I asked about it just a week or so ago, I was told that there was no plan articulated yet. Can you please share with us what the plan for seminar students will be this semester? Next comment is from Laura Quick, located at 3206 Marshall Road in Drexel Hill. Comment received on the 3rd at 6:33 p.m. via email. Comment begins, my son will be a second grader at Garriford Elementary for the 2020-2021 school year, and we need to get him switched from PM cohort to AM cohort. We can provide our own transportation to and from school, but it is vital to my family's livelihood that my son be put into AM cohort. My husband and I cannot work with our son in the morning during what would be his virtual learning session. Thank you for your understanding with this issue and finding a solution to moving my son to AM cohort. Please let me know how this issue can be solved. End of comment. Excuse me. The next comment, sorry, no address. Next comment is from Jenna Tinker, located at 331 Blanchard Road in Drexel Hill. Comment received on the 3rd at 7:45 p.m. via email. Comment begins, I have 2 children at Garriford and Upper Darby High School. I prefer the recently proposed hybrid in-school and online program as opposed to an all online schooling. I'm also comfortable with bubble management of positive cases. For example, quarantining only the class where any positive cases has occurred. Thank you for your management of an unenviable, most difficult task. End of comment. Our next comment has been received from Michael Lay, located at 132 Glencoe Road in Upper Darby. Comment received on the 4th at 9:17 a.m. via email. Comment begins, I would like to address and make the following general comments in regard to the pandemic reopening of the school plan since detailed information was not given yet. A, B, and C day cycle. Number 1, is the cycle day applied to all schools, elementary, middle school, high school? Number 2, will the school district provide or post a cycle day on each day on the school calendar? If not, how do families and students know which day is which, since cohorts and special classes are identified by the cycle day? Class schedule. Number 1, will the school district provide families or students of their class schedules, class start and finish times? Number 2, does the school district know which students are registered for virtual learning, or each student has to notify their assigned teacher later on? Number 3, home access website no longer accessible with existing username and password. The account is locked. Is that done on purpose? Number 4, will the school district provide instructions on how to access synchronous learning? Number 5, how do you report absence and attendance now? School textbooks. Number 1, for virtual learning, will schools provide textbooks to students? I'm referring to a textbook for elementary students. If so, will each school notify families or students for pickup later? School starts less than a month away. The school district needs to provide or communicate to families more details of the school plan. Right now, other family members and myself do not know the details of the school plan, and that is why I'm addressing some of the concerns as stated above. Thanks. End of comment. Next comment is from Joanne Namavong, located at 133 North Pennock Street in Upper Darby. Comment received on the 4th at 11:19 a.m. via email. Comment begins. The email received late Friday afternoon causes me to speculate that the board plans on rescinding its July 14th vote for a hybrid model in favor of an all-virtual learning model. Assuming my speculation is accurate, I make the following comments. Number one, while understandable there was a lack of professionalism in the teaching last spring, teachers need to be in the classroom to teach. There will be no danger as they will be alone in the classroom. This will provide a more structured learning environment that will be more conducive to learning. If some teachers feel childcare is an issue, then they should bring their school-age children with them. We parents, however, are being afforded few childcare options and will be presented with the life-altering challenges due to the lack of affordable childcare. Number two, if this all-virtual education is being enacted due to pressure from the PSEA or the UDEA, I would like to know what oversight the district will put into place to ensure that teachers unwilling to return are not engaging in quote-unquote dangerous activities, grocery and other retail shopping, dining out, recreation, etc. All those things can be accomplished online. If it is too dangerous to come into work, it is too dangerous to engage in those activities. Number three, how will the school district fulfill their role as mandated reporters for child abuse and suicide? How will you even know when a kid is in trouble? End of comment. The next comment is from Suzanne Brittis, located at 319 Austin Drive in Clifton Heights. Comment received on the 4th at 11:49 a.m. via email. Comment begins. I know that questions are typically reserved for committee board meetings and are not usually entertained at regular board meetings. Since the information presented this evening is new and likely needs to be voted on prior to the next scheduled committee meeting, I'm hoping there can be an exception this evening. I have some questions regarding what reopening will look like at the elementary level now that more details have been worked out. How many students total, both in-person and virtual, will be assigned to each classroom teacher? Will 4th and 5th grade still operate under the departmentalization format? Will the new Envision math curriculum still be rolled out for elementary students? What will MTSS look like? Traditionally, students were grouped by skills that needed to be remediated. What will the impact of the logistical limitations of our current situation look like? Will there be pickup days for books and consumables for students who have selected the all-virtual option? Will there be staff in the buildings available to assist with late bus arrivals and student pickup so that cleaning can take place as scheduled between the AM and PM cohorts and teachers have the needed time to prepare for the transition to the PM cohort? Thank you for your time and attention. End of comment. The next comment is from Lori Patterson, located at 717 Concord Avenue in Drexel Hill. Comment received on the 4th at 12:45 p.m. via email. Comment begins. My comments requests are in regards to agenda item 3.2 under the instruction and curriculum section of this evening's report. First, I would like to thank members of the administration who clearly put so much time into the creation of this comprehensive plan, including the schedules that offer a clearer picture of what a student's day-to-day educational programming will look like under the models being considered. Over the past month, there have been many editorials featured in prominent national newspapers that discuss the importance of getting children back to school despite the threat of COVID-19. These pieces take for granted that public education is, in the United States, is something that it has not, that's bolded, been for a long time, a public commodity that is well-funded, highly valued, and robustly resourced. The authors of these articles seem to assume that all that is needed to make an in-person education safe is a little creativity, elbow grease, and quote-unquote thinking outside the box, as if the problem has been a lack of will and nothing more. We all probably know that this is a fantasy to think that public education is even adequately resourced in this country, let alone robustly. No matter how dedicated the staff and teachers are, or how willing the community and parents are to pitch in and be flexible, a worldwide pandemic is a force to be reckoned with and can't be overcome through wishful thinking. The divestment from public education is a critical difference between the United States and those countries where students have successfully returned to in-person education. That fact doesn't get mentioned in the articles, and it is a dangerous omission. At this time, in this area, most of us can't even reliably find basic supplies at the store, such as Clorox wipes, sanitizer, and tissues, let alone paper masks or face shields. Test results wait. times are increasing, and Delaware County is leading the state in its rate of infection. As a parent of 2 students, one in middle school and one in high school, I would prefer that we deal with reality rather than fantasy. Therefore, I support the district and board choosing to, at minimum, opt for the first semester as 100% virtual programming to be reevaluated over the winter break. I do have 2 requests. Number 1, in the future, please consider allowing a 24-hour window of time, perhaps releasing the agenda at 6 p.m. the evening before a board meeting for the public to review the agenda and post questions. An agenda that is posted before midnight creates great difficulties for individuals with traditional working hours. I have not had enough time to read through all the materials provided and imagine I'm not the only one who is in this situation. Number 2, please consider offering after-school activities and clubs, even if they are virtual. I know that many parents feel strongly that there is a need for socialization time that is somewhat structured, and the time that kids spend in after-school activities is important and enriching. Thank you for your consideration. End of comment. Next comment is from Anna Halloran, located at 7214 Penarth Avenue in Upper Darby. Comment received on the 4th at 1:11 p.m. via email. Comment begins, I do not have a student in Upper Darby School District, but I do live in the district, attended K-12 and UDSD, and most importantly, my mother teaches in the district. Dr. McGarry, the fact that it is August 4th and you've still not made the decision to move school fully virtual tells me one thing. You do not care about the health and my mom, my family, or the health of all the other families that have students and staff in UDSD. What do Upper Darby School District administrators know that the district administrators in Norristown, Downingtown, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh don't know? Why risk even one positive case by opening schools? Allow schools and families to fully prepare for virtual school instead of having to scramble and change plans when the district will inevitably have to close again. Sometimes the right decision, and this is in caps, is a hard decision. Yes, virtual school will be hard on parents and students and teachers, but it is the only bold way to make sure our community stays safe. I've watched my mom agonize every single day this summer about the decision about how to safely return to school in the fall. However, hoping like everyone that somehow the pandemic will be under control enough to return in some capacity. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Delaware County is leading the whole state of Pennsylvania in COVID-19 cases, and now we have even seen a number of schools try to open across the country and make it only a few days before needing to quarantine. My mom loves being in her classroom and being able to see her students in person, but she knows it will not be safe. Even with a hybrid cohort model, there is no way to ensure safety for all students and staff. There are too many variables. My mom pours her heart and soul into her school and classroom each and every day, and she will continue to do so virtually. I implore the school board to show that you care more about the health and lives of our district staff, students, and their families than any other possible motive for reopening, and please make the decision to open school completely virtual this fall. Thank you for your time. End of comment. Next comment is from Liza Grabble, located at 715 Blythe Avenue in Drexel Hill. Comment received on the 4th at 2:57 p.m. via voicemail. Comment begins, my question is, if it is all virtual, will there be live teachers at the other end of the computer teaching, or will there pretty much be teaching themselves? And how will this affect VOTEC students? Thank you. End of comment. Yes, sir.
Sorry.
Sure.
Do you need a break? Want me to read for a little bit?
I think I'm okay.
Let me know.
Okay, I'll do 3 and then turn it over to you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay, the next comment is from Letitia Mejias, located at 2403 Garrett Road in Drexel Hill. Comment received on the 4th at 3:55 p.m. via email. Comment begins, given that the board voted to explore a hybrid learning option for students and staff at the July meeting, how will the district manage the staffing issues mentioned at the July 28th committee meeting if staff or their family members are at risk? For example, what have you put in place to protect the high-risk teachers? What are the contingency plans if, number 1, staff have to take FMLA or feel it is unsafe to come in? Number 2, if sickness is an issue with staff, how will you manage the shortage? Number 3, how will you manage the shortage if subs will not come in because of the risk of communal spread? Thank you. End of comment. Next comment is from Dennis Mejias, located at 2403 Garrett Road, Drexel Hill, received on the 4th at 3:57 p.m. via email. Comment begins. Downtown Area School District and Chester Upland School District have decided to start their school year virtually for staff and students based on information received from the Chester County Health Department. My understanding is that we also rely on information from Chester County Health Department since Delco does not have one. Since we're using the same information, why are we considering an option that is not virtual for staff and students at this time? End of comment. Dr. McGarry, you can pick up at 26 for me. I'll do this last one, please. Next comment is from Eugene Halloran, located at 7214 Penarth Avenue in Upper Darby. Comment received on the 4th at 5:04 p.m. via email. Comment begins. School Board, when you are considering reopening the schools, please take into consideration the health and well-being of our students, teachers, and staff. Bringing people back into the buildings is akin to playing with fire. The New York Times reported today that schools in Indiana had to abruptly shift to online learning after just 2 days, and Mississippi districts that reopened have had to close as students and teachers brought the virus back with them. In Georgia's largest school district, 200 people have been barred from work because of COVID-19. Put this together with the fact that Pennsylvania has just granted students a 2-month extension on immunizations, and we have a totally unprecedented situation. Please follow the lead of other school districts and vote for a virtual return to the 2020-2021 school year. Thank you. End of comment.
Ms. Buford, thank you so much for doing what you're doing. I'm up to Jillian Altman, 3846 Ann Street, Drexel Hill. I believe the comment came in on August the 4th at 5:18 p.m. There's no agenda item listed, but it's clear from reading it that it's regarding the opening of schools and the instruction and curriculum report. I'll begin. I want to thank everyone for their hard work in coming up with plans for this school year. I was all set on my hybrid for my 8th and 10th grade students, but as the numbers begin to climb and we begin to hear more about long-term effects, I'm second-guessing my decision. I have a few questions. One, how will masks be enforced when 6 feet of social distancing isn't available? Will the child not wearing a mask be removed from the classroom? Will they be suspended? Two, with the state of pushing back the mandatory vaccine date by 2 months, what percentage of kids will be in school who aren't up to date on their vaccines? I know normally that in 7th grade there's usually a decent amount of kids, maybe 5% or 10% or more, who are sent home until they can provide documentation. Is there an anticipation of more than that normal amount of kids not being up to date? Does this further risk exposure for the kids? 3, what does the synchronous learning look like in both the virtual and hybrid models, specifically for the middle and high school? Will the virtual synchronous instruction be taught by teachers teaching kids in a classroom at the same time? How does this work with a flipped classroom model where teachers are really providing individual instruction? Will it be a different set of teachers? Will the virtual synchronous be a flipped model as well or traditional model? 4, when is the latest we have to decide officially if we want to do virtual? Will classes at all levels be offered virtually? End of comment. Next comment, Jennifer Fenimore. I'm sorry, no address, so we cannot implement that one. Next comment, Andrea Palmer, 263 Revere Road, Clifton Heights. Comment received August the 4th, 2020 at 5:31. I'm writing because I guess there's no indication of the agenda, but it's clear it's about the plan. I'm writing because after being silent for so long, I have finally had enough. Kids belong in school full-time for their own health and education. So many children have mental illness, depression, anxiety. This is hurting them, and I speak from watching my children suffer with your decisions. Virtual learning is not even 10% of what we would get if in school. As a school board, you are favoring those that chose to virtual learn, but no option to that many that want their children in school. That the pros of being in school out of the possibility of getting a virus that is less deadly than the flu. You have taken away so many things from children's first at doing something at their school, to their school last. I'm sorry, in school to their last. Their memories, their accomplishments, the sense of purpose. These children and teachers have been playing sports, hanging out with friends, going on vacations, going to the public pools, birthday parties, restaurants, and so much more. That why is all that okay, but being in a class that will make them better people and smarter is not. Full-time school needs to be an option for the many that want it, in addition to the many that may need it as well. Taking so many they face losing their job to be home because schools are letting the community down. End of comment. Next comment, Killy Leposki, 4007 Brunswick Avenue, 8/4/2020 at 5:49 p.m. Again, no list of what agenda item or report, but it's clear that it's about the instruction and curriculum report. Hi, my question is how seminar going to be included with virtual or in person? Hi, another question. What will happen to music program, sports for middle school, and clubs? End of comment. Next comment, Robert Nothis. I hope I said it correctly. 916 Roberts Avenue. The comment came in on August the 6th, 8/6/2020 at 6:09 p.m. Comment, is there a plan for student or staff testing and contact tracing? End of comment. Next comment, Elizabeth Kerr, 747 Lindale Avenue, Drexel Hill. The comment came in on August the 4th, 2020 at 6:10 p.m. It's clear that it's item 4.2. I believe that to begin the upcoming school year, a virtual setting is the only true safe option for learning. However, I believe that a full-time synchronous schedule sorry, the screen's moving. I believe a full-time synchronous schedule will create grave inequities. This educational model favors students and teachers who already have reliable internet access, a consistent support system, and reliably quiet and private place to work without additional responsibilities. But what about the students without a reliable internet connection who might miss part of an entire lesson? What about the households with multiple students but not enough bandwidth to support constant live streaming? What about the students without their own bedroom or a house without a consistent private or quiet space? What about the students without their own headphones? What about the students in a daycare environment not conducive to focused learning? Or the students that are being supervised by different people on different days? Will there be reliable internet there? Will there be a caregiver available to them, support if they need it? What about the students with ADHD expected to sit at a computer for hours on end? What about students who have younger siblings to watch during the day? What about the students who get chronic headaches from so much screen time? What about the traditionally good students who just aren't dealing well with the trauma of the pandemic? For that matter, what about the teachers who just aren't dealing well with the trauma of the pandemic? What about the teachers without a reliable internet connection? What about the teachers with children or babies that need to be cared for at home? What about the teachers that don't have consistent access to an appropriately public area for the house that is also quiet? What about the teachers that live in a shared housing? What happens when there's a power outage? When a teacher can't be live on one day or for more than one day? Will there be virtual substitutes? Will those classes somehow still be better live than if the teacher already had pre-recorded lessons made available to students? The greatest potential for virtual learning is in its inherent flexibility and individualization, but a rigid schedule greatly diminishes, if not completely negates, these amazing benefits. A flexible and well-developed online system could allow students to work independently at their own pace, simultaneously empowering teachers to constantly be updated, improving and adapting their online content and delivery methods, and identifying struggling students for additional one-on-one or small group support. As a teacher, I could have up to 36 students in a virtual class for 30 minutes because there is still a hope to move into a hybrid option this year. Then students will still need to be moved to DHMS now because moving students from one school to another in the middle of the year will be absurd. How much individualized attention would they actually get in that setting? And for those students who have a poor internet connection or come late or miss class altogether, altogether because of another responsibility, how would it be better for students to be able to watch a dynamic pre-recorded video lesson that includes built-in formative assessment and checks for understanding? It is hard to see to keep trying to get to the rigidity of the structure of traditional school while in a completely different environment simply will work for most students and teachers. End of comment. I'm sorry, that's the last 3 minutes, and we'll read the rest of this. It'll be included in the record at the next board meeting, correct, Mr. Rogers? In the minutes. Thank you. Sorry, bear with me for a second. Next comment is Joe Clark. It doesn't indicate the item, but it's clear it's about the reopening of schools. It was at August the 4th of 2020 at 6:39 p.m. We're absolutely 100%. I'm sorry. I don't see an address on this one. Give me a second. I'm sorry. Joe Clark and Sadie Thomas, 75 Houston Road, Lansdowne. I believe that address is within the Upper Darby School District boundaries. We do have some in the Lansdowne area. So I'll read the comment. We're absolutely 100% against full virtual learning. Our 6-year-old did horrible with virtual learning through the remainder of the school year last year and has done horribly with a summer school program. He needs an IEP that we were planning get straightened out last spring and were unable because of COVID. Now we'll be starting off another school year with virtual learning without an IEP plan. Also, from everything being said, there seems to be zero concrete plan for those students, even with an IEP plan. End of comment. Next comment, Kate Smith, 4716 Cedar Lane. It doesn't have an agenda item listed, but I believe by reading it, it's about the reopening of schools. August the 4th, 2020 at 6:41 p.m. Comment, accessing how to comment was a challenge due to misinformation. I fully support virtual learning because there is not adequate funding to ensure appropriate social distancing, nor the counselors or services necessary to cope with the fallout of virus spread. I am writing to express my opposition to the ridiculousness of expecting synchronous participation by our community's youth. What do parents and guardians need to do to remove themselves and their learners from this expectation that is completely disconnected from reality? I embrace education and the fact that education is the ticket out of the happenstance or circumstance. Who is helping the kids with getting online while parents and guardians are trying to work so they can provide a home? School board. Please exercise your common sense and insist upon non-synchronous plan. Demanding synchronous learning is completely inequitable and will disadvantage every student who does not have an adult coach available during these mandated synchronous times, or any family who has to plan internet access. Also, as the parent of a senior athlete, that plan does not make sense. End of comment. Next comment, John Miller, 1133 Agnew Drive, Drexel Hill, came in on August the 4th, 2020 at 6:53 p.m. There's no item or report item listed, but I believe it has to do with the reopening of schools. I'm still listening to the board meeting. Here's the comment. I'm still listening to the board meeting, and I would like to know how is possible that a child that has two parents that work, how will that child be able to go online and interact with the teacher, and they will not be able to go online with the child until after they get home from work? End of comment. Sorry, I'm trying to... keep up with the screen. Next comment is from Ms. Fitzpatrick, 908 Roberts Avenue, Drexel Hill. The comment came in on August the 4th at 6:55 p.m. Again, I do not believe a report was listed, but it's clear about opening of schools. I am the Drexel Hill Middle School Home and School Vice President. Many parents have reached out to us and wanted to know if they could change their decision from hybrid learning to virtual learning from district survey that was sent out. I did explain that it was okay and email Dr. McGarry or Dr. Alloway to make that change for their student or students. Can you please release survey results and how many families changed their mind to go from hybrid to virtual? Thank you for all of your hard work in keeping our students, our kids and staff safety your number one priority. End of comment. Next comment. Is from Daniel King, 22 West Broadway Avenue, on August the 4th, 2020 at 7:05 p.m. No agenda item listed, but it's clear it's about the reopening of schools and the instruction curriculum report. I first want to thank all of you for all your hard work. I just wanted to see if I heard correctly that if the numbers go down, then the district would consider sending the elementary schools back September or October, and the secondary schools would go back after winter break, question mark. If this is so, why does the district think it is safer to send the younger ones back before the secondary kids? End of comment. Next comment is from Kristen Colodi, 1029 Morgan Avenue, Drexel Hill, August the 8th, 2020, 7:18 p.m. No item listed, but it's clear it's about the reopening of schools. And the comment is the following: is any staff being laid off / furloughed while in virtual learning? Next comment came from Karen Forrester, 736 Fairfax Road, Drexel Hill. Comment came in on August the 4th, 2020 at 7:18 p.m. Again, no item listed. However, it's clear it's about the return of school and the instruction and curriculum report. Hello, my son is a senior this year and will be attending VOTEC again this school year. He is in the PM session of VOTEC. Information from Delaware County Technical School has been sent out to him just last week stating in-person classes. How will that work if and when UD goes virtual? End of comment. The next comment, I just want to pause for a second. I believe we've already addressed this comment because it seems to be a similar comment. Ms. Buford? No, comment, I'm on comment 44. No, different one? Okay. Comment 44, Andrea Palmer, 263 Revere Road, Clifton Heights, August the 4th, 2020 at 7:23 p.m. No item listed, but it's about the return of reopening of schools and the instruction and curriculum report. Comment, listening to this meeting, and I couldn't be more upset at the failures that represent our school board and children. You one-sided the whole thing to those that don't want kids in school. Data has shown time and again the risk is next to none, that the flu is more dangerous, that Catholic schools are opening in full, that you should be paying for families that want full time in school to have that option, since it is clear you guys could care less. End of comment. Next comment, Julie Lowry, 2418 David Drive, Drexel Hill. Comment came in on August the 4th, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. Again, no item listed, but it's clear it's the instruction and curriculum report and reopening schools. I'm a parent of an 11th grader in UDHS, Upper Darby High School. I'm dealing with the voting of all virtual learning this evening and was so hoping for the cohorts with virtual and in-school model. I'm now looking at the possibility of not being able to live and support her and myself, I as a bus driver, without my normal paycheck or my work once again. I'm also deeply concerned about my special needs students. I have talked to a few of my parents whose children did not do well on a computer. Hope the board will pass the pay of bus drivers as they did in the past if we aren't working once again. As we start the new school year, this will affect me drastically. End of comment. Oh, I'm sorry. 35, the John Miller comment. On the right, it says do not receive, received after, so it is an ISC comment? Okay. Going back to a comment, John Miller, 1133 Agnew Drive, August the 4th, 2020 at 6:40 p.m. No agenda item listed, but I'm being told it's related to the instruction and curriculum reopening of schools. I have a child who goes to Hillcrest Elementary School. If you guys decide to not have in-person school, I would like for someone to please advise me how I can get my child into the school choice program so that I can get her into a private school. My understanding is they will be open. So if someone could please address that, thank you. End of comment. I believe I'm back to I'm back to number 45. I believe it's the same person. So we'll go to 40.
You read 46.
I already read that one. I'm read 48. Nope, sorry.
We're down to 51.
Okay. Chris Baldwin, 328 North Oak Avenue, Clifton Heights, August the 4th, 2020, 8:14 PM. No agenda item, or a report item, but it's clear it's about the reopening of schools. Comment. First, let me say thank you for all that you are doing. Many of us understand the difficulties that you're having trying to appease everyone's needs. I'm well aware, however, that you can't please everyone, so I want you to know that I do appreciate everything you are doing. That said, I wanted to know if the district will once again make Chromebooks available for students to you. Thank you. End of comment. I believe that's the end of the comments at this point in time. Ms.
Thank you.
Buford. I'm trying to see, is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Buford, and thank you, Dr. McGarry, for reading all the comments. And thank you, public, for all your comments and questions to the board. I think we received all of our comments from the board and all of our comments from the public. Now we're going to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please signify by saying I oppose and state your name for the record.
I oppose. David Neal.
Those abstaining, please signify by saying I abstain and state your name for the record. Motion carried. Let's see what's next. Is there a motion for the adjournment of the meeting?
I'd like to make a motion. This is Gina Curry to adjourn this meeting.
Is there a second?
I second. Neil Desnoyers.
All right, please signify by saying aye for the adjournment of the meeting.
Aye.
Aye. I'm sorry, Mr. President. Did we review? I know we had Ms. Curry bring forward the motion under 4.1, but do we need to go through 4.2 and 4.3 before adjournment, or was that done prior?
My understanding, Mr. Neal, is I'm sorry, Kyle.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I got confused. Thank you. Thank you, Kyle.
You're welcome.
And then I also vote aye for the adjournment.
Meeting adjourned.